Hi, my name is Arzum Kubak and I'm a third year grad dip psych student at Monash University, as well as a student studying towards my advanced diploma in logotherapy through Life Change Therapies in Australia. Today I'll be taking you on a very brief tour through Dr. Viktor Frankl's logotherapy as part of an assessment for my advanced diploma. I am also a recovering stutterer, so here we go. Why is it called logotherapy? Well, logos is Greek for meaning, and so logotherapy could really be called meaning-centered. I would have to say this is my favorite photo of Dr. Viktor Frankl. It is also the cover of his book, The Will to Meaning. Dr. Frankl was a neurologist, psychiatrist, and also an Holocaust survivor. Dr. Frankl was lucky enough to have been mentored by Sigmund Freud and then Alfred Adler. When Dr. Frankl challenged their thinking, he was expelled from both schools of thought. Dr. Frankl lost his initial scientific manuscript pertaining to logotherapy on the first day of entering the concentration camps. Even though he and other prisoners endured harsh brutality within these camps, it gave Dr. Frankl the opportunity to see just how relevant his theories were. He noticed one characteristic which separated those that survived the concentration camp and those who chose to die, example through suicide or just giving up on life. And this characteristic was meaning. Logotherapy has been so influential that it is now regarded as the third Viennese school of psychotherapy. Logotherapy was the first psychotherapy to bring in a human, that is a spiritual element, into its theories, and thus has a three-dimensional view of the human being. The first is the soma, or our physical body. Then there's the psyche, which is our mind. And then the nu, which is our spiritual element. Logotherapy is based on three principles, also known as pillars. The first being our freedom of will. Many factors influence who we are. Example, our social and genetic makeup. But we are still free to shape who we are and hence take the responsibility for what we become. The second is our will to meaning, and that's our basic striving to find meaning of life. And the third, our meaning of life, and this is meaning for us to discover, much like an assignment that we have to work out for ourselves. Responsibility and freedom plays a major role in logotherapy. Whatever that has happened to us or will happen to us, we have allowed it to occur. We cannot blame others for what has happened, as we have given this freedom to them, and therefore must take responsibility for the outcome. We also have the freedom to take back this freedom from them and to regain control of our lives. Dr. Frankl once said, "Man's main concern is not to gain pleasure or to avoid pain, but rather to see a meaning in his life." So how can meaning of life be achieved? Our primary motivation in life is to seek meaning, and this can be discovered through work or an activity, encountering something such as nature or art or someone, and also through the attitudes we take on during times of unavoidable suffering. Meaning is not only considered as being just one meaning of life, or our calling, for example, but meaning is to be found in every moment of our lives, even in those mundane everyday tasks. When we look to find meaning, we need to look outside, above, and beyond ourselves, as meaning is not held within us. Meaning is found external to us, in our homes, the community, and or in the world. The more we forget about ourselves and help others, the more we become human. And in logotherapy, this is termed self-transcendence. Self-actualization is a byproduct of self-transcendence, and this is where the individual realizes their full potential and awakens to their real self. Meaning is also unique to each and every individual, as my meaning is not the same as yours and vice versa. We may be looking at the same thing, but the meaning derived from it may be completely different. As much as I would love to teach each and every one of you where to find meaning and how, I can't, because we're all here on earth for a different purpose. No one knows what it is until they find it themselves. Suffering is such a big concept that I've allocated 2 slides. Logotherapy is not in the view that in order to find meaning, one must suffer, as this would be seen as masochism. Suffering is used in the context of unavoidable suffering, such as terminal illness, grief, and psychological disorders. Unavoidable suffering is only one of the 3 ways in which meaning can be found. In more instances than not, we actually create our own suffering by demanding ourselves to reach high expectations, and when we can't, we feel like a failure. When reality does not meet expectation, that's when we begin to suffer. Suffering actually challenges us, whilst also strengthening our inner strength bit by bit. Example, if we lived a wrapped in cotton wool type life for most of our existence, the moment we become unwrapped and experienced the sometimes brute nature of life, we'd probably not know what to do and be psychologically scarred for life. In a way, suffering is for our benefit. Once we begin to look at suffering in this light, suffering can become meaningful, and we can then turn it into a triumph, realizing the good it's actually done. Another quote by Dr. Frankl that summarizes suffering and triumph so well is, "What is to give light must endure burning." So, there are times when we need to suffer in order to find meaning. The increase of technology has led this generation in particular to a more comfortable lifestyle and higher standard of living that ultimately leads to more leisure time. Rather than utilizing this time for meaningful activities, more and more people are visiting psychologists and psychiatrists, complaining of boredom and a meaningless life. Rather than seeking meaning, people are resorting to meaningless activities such as gambling, shopping, and risky activities. These activities would give them an instantaneous hit per se, but once the effects have worn off, people fall into what logotherapy describes as the existential vacuum. Think of it as being a deep pit where life is bleak and meaningless, and no matter what you do, usually meaningless activities, you receive no long-lasting pleasure. This is also a place where mood disorders such as depression and anxiety live, along with addictions and then ultimately suicide. There are times when my life is filled to the brim with tension. Here are just a few examples: family, work, uni, illness. And I can think of times when all these things are in full swing in my life, and I think, why even study psychology? Since I don't want to get rid of my family or my job, if we remove some of the tension relating to uni, then I don't think I'd be able to achieve my meaning in life. And that's to help others who are where I used to be, on the brink of suicide. What people need is a degree of tension in their lives that will ultimately lead them to their meaning or meaningful activity. I can tolerate and cope with my tension, knowing that at the end lies meaning and, as a result, happiness. Logotherapy categorizes love into three levels. At the base level, we have sexual love, which is attraction to the other person's physical being and nothing further. A little higher is erotic love, which is similar to sexual love, but also involves some of the other characteristics of the other person. At the peak, we have spiritual love, and this is considered to be true love. This type of love is more hardcore and intense, where both parties can tap into each other's spiritual dimension. For example, my soulmate died almost 20 years ago, yet I can still feel his presence at times. This is how deep a spiritual love and connection can be. The purpose of work is not to fulfill meaning, but to create means for fulfilling meaning. The work that we do contributes to the community as a whole and not only to the profession as such. The work that we do must satisfy or stimulate us to continue working, and if it doesn't, it will lead to anxiety and existential frustration. So, if we don't enjoy the work we do, whose problem is it? Well, of course, it's ours. We have the freedom to make the decision to change jobs. We need to find work that satisfies our inner creativeness. Unemployment in most cases leads to laziness, boredom, and playing the victim, and not depression as suspected. Volunteering within the community or adopting a positive outlook will help reduce such feelings until suitable work can be found. This can also be said for retirement. No one likes to speak about death, but the truth is that one day each of us will die. This being the case, death plays a significant role in logotherapy, as it underlines the fact that we are only here temporarily. Knowing that we're going to die one day hastens up the need to achieve our meaning of life. If we were immortal, very few would respond to this need, and most would probably procrastinate. And aren't we all masters at that? Another reason why death is necessary is that our meaning of life can only be found in our lifetime and by no one other but ourselves. Thus, meaning of life cannot be found in future generations. We are the co-creators of our lives. I only say co because there are some things that we have no control over, such as our physical bodies, genetic makeup, the family in which we are born into, and the era of birth, as only examples. All of this is out of our control and is known as fate. However, we write our own destiny. Every moment in life gives us the opportunity to make decisions, whether right or wrong, which inevitably directs our destiny. Several factors influence our destiny, and of course the decisions that we make. First is our natural disposition, the physical body that we have and the illnesses that we experience. Secondly, the situation, all the external environments that we belong to, example, family, work, social. And third, our position. This is a combination of the disposition and situation. Example, given our disposition and situation, are we able to X, Y, or Z? To this day, scientists have not been able to locate this thing called the conscience. In fact, it is one of the top 3 most sought answers of science today, along with how the universe was initially created. Logotherapy deems that conscience resides within the noetic dimension and its role is of a spiritual nature. This is where an individual's religious and ethical sensitivity, ability to make responsible decisions and choices, and our uniquely human characteristic to seek meaning lies. We all endeavour to be responsible citizens of society, and so we should. However, sometimes making a responsible choice in our lives may not necessarily mean the correct choice, as we will never know if we have grasped the correct meaning of the moment. There are times where we need to err in order to. And this brings me to the end of our brief overview of logotherapy. There are many concepts that I have not been able to cover, so please accept my apologies. My ultimate wish is that each and every person can one day find meaning in their lives. Thank you.